hardest question of the day for each of you. Who is Bill Rogers? That's what I wanted to get.
Is that a question to me? Oh, yeah.
Bill.
There you go.
I was going to say, who is Bill Rogers? I am a agriculture consultant, really more of a agriculture advocate, understanding that we have to feed ourselves. And as you can tell, I like to eat.
That make three of us.
Yeah, it runs on groceries.
And so I work helping farmers, one, with crop production, because the more we make, the more we can eat, but also helping them navigate the environmental aspects and the regulations that have been dropped upon us for one reason or another. I love the outdoors. I love being outdoors. I love farming. So much so I bought a farm just so I could have my own. So I'm a hard worker. Don't deal well with double talk. Don't deal with people that, to be blunt, are stupid or ignorant of what they're doing. I think ignorance is probably a better term of what they're doing. So I get frustrated very quickly. So that's me in a nutshell.
Nick and I have been on the opposite end of that. Not being stupid or ignorant, but your frustrations.
Nick's actually been on the other side of that when he worked for the conservation.
No, that was Bill and my first interaction, and but after that, when we understood each other, it's been good ever since.
Right?
Isn't that something?
Mm-hmm.
Who is Nick Biondi?
Who is Nick Biondi? Nick Biondi's looking to figure out who Nick Biondi is, and he's been doing it his whole life.
A lot of people are in that spot.
So I don't know what brought me here is that I'm a fisherman, and I love to fish. I just love being outside, and I came to agriculture later in life because I was doing a job. I was working on Wall Street, and I was, doing it okay for people. But I think about my father, who was a doctor, and he every day of his life he did something to help somebody, make their lives better. And I wasn't doing that with my life, and so I wasn't. What kind of example was I providing to my children and just to myself? So I decided I wanted to do something that would help people. And I didn't know what that was going to be, and I wasn't going to be a professional fisherman because I'm not that good. But somebody suggested I should get involved in water quality. And I said, hey, that's great, save the bay. I fish in Chesapeake Bay all the time. That's a great idea. Self-serving, but it helps everyone. And I found out through a bunch of research and just talking to people, going out and meeting folks, that if you want to get involved in water quality, you need to be involved in agriculture. Yeah. Because agriculture is the main source of water pollution, at least for the Chesapeake Bay, but generally in the United States. So they explained to me how I had to do that. I went back to school and got my certification as a nutrient manager and went to the Conservation District in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, because that's where the action's at in Pennsylvania, is ground zero for agriculture. And I said, hey, I'm a crazy old guy. I want to do something good. Hire me. And they did. And I found once that I got involved in it that I love agriculture and I love farmers. It's fascinating. It's fascinating. Did I ever tell you a story about silage? So to give you an idea of how ignorant I was, because I thought, hey, I'm a smart guy. I went to college. I got most of my master's degree. I know stuff. No, I do not. And farmers love this story. So I'm in class. I'm at Penn State. It's Jerry Martin, and they're talking about silage. And I don't know what silage is, It's silage. I'm a city kid. And so I finally, I'm the crazy old guy. Everybody else 25, I'm 50. I raise my hand. Jerry, what is silage? He goes, oh, Nick, that's where they cut the corn off the stalk and they chop it up and we use it for food. And I was like, well, who the hell eats that? I'd never seen that at the supermarket. And they're like, no, Nick, that's for the cows. I'm like, oh, that was when I first realized that I didn't know anything. So I said about the process of learning as much as I could. But Amish farmers love that story. Oh yeah, you tell them that, and they're like, "Oh, this guy was an idiot." Yeah,
it's easy to get lost in the basics. Because we work together on so many endeavors, and I'll speak a little bit about our brother who's not here, and kind of our collective endeavor as Weaver Environmental Partners. But it's easy to get lost in it all. One of the things I want to make sure that we accomplish today and long into the future is to really reduce things down to practice, so that folks see themselves in us and are comfortable asking questions, demonstrating their ignorance by not necessarily doing something foolish, but by being humble enough, vulnerable enough to just ask the questions. And that's a lot of times we don't have that in our society. So that's something that's important to me. You mentioned the Chesapeake Bay. You mentioned Lancaster County. We're in Chester County today. The Chesapeake Bay Watershed, I was working on some technology transfer out of the military. And a young lady from Tetra Tech came in yelling at me about the farmers are ruining the bay. And I had no idea what she was talking about. And I spent 4 years at an agriculture school. So I had no idea that she was basically saying, you Pennsylvanians are ruining the bay. Bill, from the standpoint of shit rolls downhill, explain the bay issue.
Having grown up my first life outside of between DC and Annapolis, and graduating from high school in '83, when a lot of the bay things started, I remember even back in high school, we had a bay walk, and we started to learn about what was going wrong. And at that time, we had no regulations. This was pre many things. It was right after the implementation of the Clean Water Act. Hadn't gotten too far in it, but the bay is a large inland water source, and there's a lot of different land uses that drain to the bay, and that's what makes it so difficult to attempt to we're trying to restore it back to a certain water quality level, and we're struggling to get there because we have a lot of finger pointing. And I think if too many people would quit pointing fingers and start understanding that when you point one, 3 point back at you, and clean your stuff up first and move on. But it's and it's like any life science. Whenever you work in any life science or you work in any biological system, too many people want to try to implement rocket science. Having a dad that worked at NASA, I understand rocket science. And it's exact, and it has to be exact for a reason. But with a life science, you can't be exact. We fertilize to get a certain crop yield, hoping it's going to rain, hoping a hurricane's not going to come through and blow it flat, hoping it doesn't get flooded out. So we do the best we can. Can we do better? Absolutely.
Absolutely.
And many of the original attempts and many of the regulations attempt to get us that way, but they for some reason don't understand flexibility, and they don't understand the life science. I've seen this. When Maryland instituted or implemented or passed their Water Quality Improvement Act, I believe when we first started with farmers, trying to get them to take a soil sample in Maryland. I don't want that. I'm not going to pay for that. God, it's too expensive. Way too expensive. But we only need you to do it once every 3 years. Please just take a soil sample once every 3 years. I don't want to do that. Well, then we had the flexibility, and we started to sit down with them, and we started to work on management, and we started to work on different things and go through different programs and do different in-season testing. And we're now to the point, I've got farmers that yell at me if I don't get every field sampled every year. They're like, how in the world am I going to know what to do without a soil sample?
Exactly.
Case in point, we're involved with a study with the University of Maryland, University of Delaware. They put together 15 farmers in Cecil County, Maryland. And they started with them at the beginning of the year. They were looking at corn production. And they said, fellas, we're trying to collect data. So what we want you to do is we want you to do whatever you normally do. Don't make any changes. Just do it. We're going to go through the 3 years. Please don't make changes. In the end of each year, they had a winter meeting with them. And what we did was we took soil samples to start with. We took samples of their manure if they were applying manure. We calibrated spreaders. We did everything so we know exactly what they did in the field. We did pre-side risk nitrate testing, which is a testing we could do to see if we need additional nitrogen. Didn't let them know the data. Just took the samples and everything. And we were looking to, and then we did cornstalk nitrate tests at the end of the year. Then we had a winter meeting, and we started to talk about, well, with these cornstalk nitrate tests, if you're over a certain level, you've applied too much nitrogen. Some of these guys are 20 times over that. And we come back the next year, and we do it all. And again, we tell them, don't make any changes. Do the same thing you did previously, or same thing you're always going to do. And I've got a graph that shows the 7 farms that went through all 3 years of this program. Every year, their cornstalk nitrate test came down, except for one farm. But they did. They were told, don't make any changes. But they did because they were educated and they saw, God, I'm losing money. I'm not getting any more yield for all this extra fertilizer I'm putting out or extra manure I'm putting out. I'm losing money. Why am I doing this? The one farm that actually goes up, he was a flip. He's like, well, now I know why all my neighbors out yield me. I'm not putting enough fertilizer out there. And he went up and got into the optimal range. So we need regulations, but we need regulations to force education.
Sure.
And that's where I get to, and that's where education is the way that we're going to get out of this and we're going to clean up the bay. It's surprising when I tell people, they start to complain about farmers. And I'm out having dinner with all my city folk friends. And they go, yeah, farmers doing this. And I go, you do know that your wastewater treatment plant lets raw sewage go 100 days a year. And they look at me and they go, you're kidding. I'm going, yeah, they let raw sewage go 100 days a year.
And it's interesting because the as we transition, I've always, again, to the point of trying to reduce things to practice and kind of make language comment, I've always tried to explain things. And this direct application of manure to the land, I always say, okay, there's some fertilizer value in it, but there's some other things in it. Embedded in your point, Bill, the complexity of food has gone up for livestock such that there's some things in it that don't benefit the land too. There's some undigested products. There's some antibiotics. There's a lot of different things that are in the matrix of manure, and there's a lot of different manure types. I share all that because I think the simple point, I'd love to hear from you, Nick, is we need wastewater treatment for agriculture the same way we need it for people. In this county and neighboring county, Chester County, Lancaster, and its neighboring counties, which I think qualifies as the bullseye of the Chesapeake Bay issue. I think that folks don't understand that in most of these townships, there's more animals than people.
Well, we definitely, I know in Lancaster County, have too many animals. There's just, it's the least, if you look at the Pennsylvania, has the least amount of trees you'll find anywhere is in Lancaster County. Because it's when the Amish came there, they found hickory groves, and they knew that hickory was good soil. Yeah. So that's where they stopped, and that's where they grew. But yeah, we have seen that. Well, we've seen a lot of changes recently in the way animals are. I mean, as dairy kind of collapsed a few years ago, we saw a migration into beef. Yeah. It seems like dairy's coming back a bit more. There's been a little consolidation. But, these animals, they eat and they produce waste, and it has to be dealt with. Yeah. And the way it has been done is beneficial use through spreading on land. And, it has, you have the benefits of all the nutrient and value in it, but it also, we're blessed in the sense that you're actually adding organic matter every year to the soil, which increases the organic matter, which increases yield. So what Bill was talking about, and the thing that we've always aimed to do, is to spread just the right amount at the right time. And that's not an easy thing to do. That's because you're talking about more than one trip. And if you're dealing with Amish farmers, that's horses and that's time.
And weather events.
So you have to show them that, economically, it makes more sense to do it this way.
Sure.
And that's been the key. That's what we haven't shown is we haven't brought the economics into it.
Right.
Because too many, unfortunately, still, they understand the value, the fertilizer value. They understand all that. But still disposal.
Yeah. Yeah, because they're just trying to get rid of a problem.
And cheap, easy disposal.
Right. But land application, even when we look at other other organic products, we look at human waste biosolids, we look at food waste, we look at spent mushroom substrate coming out of our mushroom industry. Land application is always the least cost method for utilization or beneficial use. And that's what drives it all is economics. Yeah. And until we have, after World War II, the United States was very adamant that we were going to have cheap food. And I don't know if it was Truman or I think it was Truman that said, fat people that aren't hungry don't revolt.
This is true.
And that's why that started the process with our federal government that we want cheap food. And therefore, we've kept our programs such that we do that. Yeah. And maybe we need to get away from that.
Yeah, and I'm going to make the argument, here and in the future that because eggheads like me have actually looked at the entire matrix of manure for all animals, I'm going to make the argument that in some instances, in most instances, we're throwing the baby out with the bathwater for the sake of the NPK value. Oh, yes, it has NPK value. It has micronutrient values, but there are ways to improve the carbon quality through pretreatment and processing manure before we land apply. And there is a more accurate way to pull out NPK values to do precision applications through pretreatment. But then this whole dynamic of the cost of land application, passes in the field, diesel fuel, maintenance on tractors, horses, and the whole thing, right? So it's a moving target for every address.
You're right.
One of the things
each farm is unique.
That's what makes it hard to make a solution for a silver bullet for all parties.
You got to save the world one farm at a time.
Yeah.
And the other problem you're going to fight with that, and I agree with you, especially as we consolidate our agriculture, we consolidate into larger dairies, we consolidate into larger poultry farms. I think the problem you're going to run into is too many people in the last 20 years have come in and said, my solution is a silver bullet for everybody.
Where is it?
And that's exactly what it is. They've come in, and some farmers have bought the silver bullet, and it didn't work.
Yeah.
Right.
And agriculture is when I got into this business, God knows many years ago, one of the first things I learned was you upset one farmer, you're going to
upset them all.
You got 50 farmers that are going to be mad at you. You make one farmer happy, who cares? Yeah. So when you have that silver bullet that comes in and it basically lays a dud, and it causes it bad. So anyone coming in with any other new technology has an uphill to climb, not just in the farm community, but also with any government agency, because again, they've seen the same thing. Yeah. Too many silver bullets that have died. That whoever was implementing it was really just chasing federal money to subsidize their salary for 10 years, and then they were out. And gone, you don't even see them anymore.
And we see that with so many abandoned technologies, whether it was American Recovery Reinvestment Act dollars that spawned Generation 2 of anaerobic digesters and for farms. There's a number of others. Right. We don't want to, like you said, we don't want to point any fingers. I've always been technology agnostic. I think I've imported and transferred 17 technologies ex-US into these two specific counties for the purpose of demonstration and getting stakeholders to appreciate, whether it be regulatory authorities to the actual farmers, to see it, touch it, feel it. Does this work? Does it not work? Break it, fix it. Do we have the supply chain to support it? And so just another layer down, we don't have to explore it too deeply, but our method of municipal wastewater treatment eliminates these issues through piping. Your neighbor uses Ajax and you use Clorox. The wastewater treatment and the integration of technology in your township or in your county accounts for that in a way that distributes the cost across the rate base. And they have the responsibility as engineers and municipal managers to implement new technology when data gets a little off and they can't discharge the water or they can't land apply the biosolids, and it's therefore they're making decisions that benefit a broader base of stakeholders. One of the things that I think is problematic with that approach, a single location, is our farm diversity in the infrastructure. The right-of-ways to do something like that would be extraordinary, because a lot of our farms are on the quote-unquote back 20, back 40, and infrastructure doesn't exist, to really kind of piggyback that way. One of the things that we've all faced, discussed, and managed clients in the space, a lot of these folks are on preserved farms. So you can't do a lot of things that you would do commercially, even though they technically and economically are feasible. So there's rules there that we're up against. So I back up and I say, there's no silver bullet. There's got to be something that works for a group, maybe using the term community system. And then everyone else, maybe we have to haul and use logistics as part of the supply chain on the wayside to get to that critical mass where these things make sense. I haven't seen other states do that well. Other states have the benefit of having many more animals in one place, and then they get to that critical mass point where it's justified at that address. Other countries have done it. Denmark and the Netherlands have done a great job. Germany has done a great job. I think with all due respect to Southeast Asia, I think China is doing a better job in certain places. But let's speak to the dynamics of the preserve farms, the benefits that were there associated with enrolling in that program, but now the limitations associated with trying to get environmental and therefore commercially compliant and having your system be economical for long-term use.
Well, let's back up to a
Sure.
couple things you just said. One is the EU has done a much better job.
Sure.
Really, mainly because they're a little bit more forward-thinking. Other thing is economics. It costs more. Their food cost per GDP is much higher. Their electrical and energy costs are much higher than the United States. So therefore, it's been an issue. The other side is the Americans' ego. Our regulators and our country, that came from the EU, but we don't want to accept it. Versus going, well, why do we have to reevaluate it? It's worked. We know it works. So that's the first problem we're running up against. But the technology is all there.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of bringing it over. The second problem we run into, especially with our small farms that we're dealing with here, is this. It almost needs to be, the technologies all need to be scaled down. Normally we talk about scaling something up from a bench, up to something usable. This is where we need to do the flip side, is we've got to scale it down and keep it economical. That's going to be the trouble. Now forward to and that can be the same thing. Our municipal waste treatment plants, they're all using technology we used 50 years ago.
Sure.
They need to come into the 20th century also with their technology.
Sure.
And we can get there, and maybe a little bit quicker with them, but we can get there. With the preserve farms, it's the same thing. Is we have too many members of our preservation agencies that are backward thinking and backward looking, and they still think farming is what it was 20, 25 years ago. They still think, I have friends who still think a farm is 50 cows, 20 pigs, 10 chickens, mom and dad, Norman Rockwell. And that's not the way it is. And I think we need to somehow explain to them or educate them that farming is changing.
Changed.
You're right. It is continuing to evolve, but it's no longer what they think it is. And that their idea, if they want to preserve farms and not open space, but preserve farms, they need to think out of the box and go, you know what? We need to let this technology come onto the farm, just like we let a farm build a manure storage 20, 30 years ago because we knew we needed to store manure, or because we moved from silos to bunkers for our silage to store it. When we allowed that because, we need that. We see why you need to do it that way. And I think that's where our group needs to spend some time, is in that education of those agencies to say, you need to move away from some of the things if a farmer's willing to implement this new I wouldn't even call it advanced technology, but this new technology for us in the United States. So we need to allow them to do that. Now, granted, do we need to turn a farm into a processing plant? No.
Not all of them.
But we do need to let them do more than what they're doing within the footprint they allow.
Yeah.
If we want to maintain farms and at the same time maintain clean water.
Sure.
And that's the balancing act that we run into. And it's a balancing act that farmers are constantly fighting.
Yeah.
So the problem that it's going to have in the future is that all this preserved land, and if you're restricting the use of it to the point where it's no longer viable, and then you're going to have preserved farmland that's no longer viable. What are you going to do then?
It's good. You already see it. I see it in Maryland.
Agreed.
In Baltimore County and Cecil County, Maryland, a lot of preserved farms are starting to be owned by investors because they're the only ones that can afford to have open land. And all they do is keep it as open land, and it's grass, but it's not productive agriculture.
All the while, we need more food.
Right.
Right.
And so there's a direct conflict in this preservation schema in the Chesapeake Bay. And I understand the economics that were once provided to the farmers by enrolling in the program. But then I think we need to educate, to Bill's point, around some of the economics associated with transitioning smaller portions of those.
Do you want
reserve
to,
farms.
do you really want to get into some of the nitty gritty? Because I know this pretty well.
Why not?
Someone worked for Preservation Association.
We're getting there.
All right. So
Go for it, Nick.
We Conserve PA is the Associated Land Trust, especially in Pennsylvania, and they have written most of the easements that you're going to get for the land trusts and the various agricultural preservations for the counties. And they have seen over the years, how these things just don't always work out. Mm-hmm. They limit you to a certain number of impervious feet for paved and then for buildings. And it was just done that way for the longest time without, and then what would happen is, as you put in a new dairy, you've got plenty of land or plenty of impervious space for buildings, but you don't think about, hey, I need an apron around this, mm-hmm. and the milk truck's got to get in, and so suddenly they're backed up because they don't have the impervious paved space. So what happened was they changed the easements to combine everything. Mm-hmm. So now there was no separation between impervious space that was paved and impervious space that was buildings, but they still continue to run into that because you're limited by a certain amount of space. So the newest easements that are coming out have what are called areas of minimal protection, areas of standard protection, areas of maximum protection. Mm-hmm. And a maximum protection area would be like a wooded stream buffer. Yeah. And then a standard protection area is generally your ag land, and your area of minimum protection is, for lack of a better description, a building envelope, a 5 square acre building envelope, where you can pretty much do whatever you want. Mm-hmm. So now the question is how do we get some of the farms that are in these older, more restrictive easements? And even in this current easement, there are certain things that limit technology. Mm-hmm. You can put in solar to a certain degree, mm-hmm. But you can't necessarily put in wasted energy technology, depending on what it says in the easement. Mm-hmm. And that's just, as we move in that direction, especially as Bill says, and I agree with him, is that we want to put this on individual farms.
Sure.
We need to be able to have the ability to do that. And there is not necessarily the forward thinking now. However, if we work with people in the We Conserve PA and the different land trusts, going forward, we can develop new easements that we can put preserve farms into by amending their easement into the new reform that can shape this technology and make it work. Yeah. But this costs money.
And education costs money.
Yeah.
And to develop those relationships, even through We Preserve and others, costs money.
And a lot of these guys are running on a shoestring, and there's just, there's 5, 6, 8 people on staff, and they just, they don't have the bandwidth to sit down and understand this.
And for us to do it costs money.
Yeah.
And for us to engage with them costs us money and them money.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have the actual project implementation. We've come to a we proposition. Our dear brother Jeremy isn't here.
Yeah.
He had emergency gall surgery, and we're going to do this again. So mm-hmm. There'll be a part 2 of this conversation. But I'd like to close it out and hear from both of you. Jeremy Weaver, we have all partnered to support Jeremy Weaver to create Weaver's Environmental Partners. Mm-hmm. What are we going to do?
We're going to help people. That's what I always wanted to do.
Jeremy, we have a collective group that has different, what's the term I'm looking for here?
Skills?
Yes, thank you. It's different skills, different abilities, different areas of expertise. Jeremy works very well with all of the environmental partners, Alliance for the Chesapeake Bay Foundation, different groups. Nick and I work very well with the Plain Sect community. I have a good relationship with them.
Jeremy does too.
Yeah. But again, my area of expertise is more in the get it done environmental and engineering side and the implementation side. Nick's good managing us all. And by putting this new group together, what we're looking to do is to fill a void between the agencies, and not just the Plain Sect, but just farmers in general.
Yeah.
Having spent every summer working on a farm, I know what they get tunnel vision on getting their job done. They got a lot to do in a short period of time to get it done.
Most of it's out of their control.
Sure.
And that's where we're trying to fill that void between the two. Gets back to our earlier conversation, is the education of the general public. Mm-hmm. My wife has told me, ex-wife has told me that when we go out to eat dinner with friends, we cannot tell them I cannot tell them where their food came from.
Absolutely not.
That they're going to enjoy a good feel, and they just need to think that it came from the grocery store. That's all they need to know. They don't need to know anything else because we get into too much of the things that they don't need to know.
And we all 3 of us do that.
Yeah, and but that's where I see we were partners, environmental partners, is filling that void working with the agencies to do a little bit back education to say, maybe you could change your program in this direction and kind of bend them a little bit. But then on the other side, work with the other side, the farming side, to say, maybe you could do some things different. And here's another idea to do it.
And wouldn't you agree it's going to take hand holding, outstretched arms, really, in all of these stakeholder zones with the farmers and the practitioners and the producers, the things that they use like food processing waste. There's just regulations on top of regulations on top of considerations, and everyone is kind of on their own lily pad. And in some instances, in some townships or some municipalities, they're floating away from each other, and in some instances, they're colliding rapidly to the point of almost maybe being mechanically disruptive. You mentioned some projects that have been done that didn't stick. This was sold as a solution, the solution. I think some of that hand-holding takes certain personality types. And the thing that I love about the Weaver Environmental Partners groups, the four of us, including Jeremy, is we can all communicate with all of our stakeholders in different ways to bring about positive momentum, because we need more food. Food needs more water. And to get more water, we need more power. And then making food and processing it to get it to the table requires power and logistics. And so I'm going to end on a question for you. What is the food, energy, water nexus to you?
Well, it's funny. I was listening to a kid one day, and I asked him, what he and his family did. And they said, we're feeding America.
Love it.
They're farmers.
Love it.
And honestly, I think the nexus is of all these things is when the person goes to Walmart or Acme or whatever and buys their chicken breast and buys their fresh broccoli.
Yep.
I mean, it's putting food on the table in such a way that where farmer makes money, we're not polluting the land, and the consumer gets fed.
Amen.
That's it to me.
Bill?
It's along those same lines, but it's also the other side. I still believe everyone thinks farmers are polluting. And they are.
Yeah.
And they don't do it on purpose.
Everybody thinks farmers are out to kill them, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, which is the craziest thing.
Crazy.
None of this is done on purpose. Yeah. I think a general public education needs to continue to happen so they know where their food came and what's going on.
Yep.
People do not know that.
It's daunting what they don't know.
Right. But I also look at the bay. Having grown up down there, knowing what it was like then, I would never swim in the bay. God forbid ever swim in the Potomac River right outside of D.C. or the Anacostia River. It's even worse. But if we look where we've come, I wouldn't say in 40 years, because really the first 25 we did nothing.
Right.
Where we've come in the last 20 years, we've climbed some very high peaks and mountains, and we need to continue that. But also, I think agriculture needs to do a better job of explaining what we've done.
Right.
Yes.
Amen.
Yeah.
Because they've done a lot.
But clean water provides good farming.
Sure.
Good farming, if we're doing it right, provides clean water. But the point that I get at with a lot of my clients who especially are unwilling to take any of the cost share or any of the assistance programs is society wants clean water.
Sure.
In our current system, society can't pay for it. They can't even pay for it through their food costs because farmers are price takers, not price setters.
Sure.
Right? So that's where the government has had to step in and say, okay, we're going to tax you a little bit more to get us some money together, and then we're going to use that to give us clean water. We're going to fix this broken system. Mm-hmm. Case in point, Maryland, and it's unfortunately getting bastardized already, but Maryland passed what they called the flush tax. Mm-hmm. Everyone that had a septic tank has to pay a certain amount of money to the state every year. And then what they were supposed to do was that money was to go into a dedicated fund. They could take 5%, believe it was, to administer the fund. The rest of it was to go out to farmers to pay for cover crops. And that's all it was basically a nutrient trading program.
Sure. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We know that septic tanks pollute.
Bill said
We're going to take the money from them. We're going to plant cover crops because we know cover crops capture nutrients so we don't lose nutrients into the Chesapeake Bay.
Yeah.
We need more of those kind of programs.
Sure.
And it was a well-done program. Unfortunately, the administrations have started to take money out of that and say, oh, no, we need this for this program and that program. But we need to do more because that helped educate more people in Maryland to understand, oh, my septic tank's a problem.
Sure.
where they didn't think it was.
Sure. Gave the platform to explain
Exactly.
the mechanics of it all. And I think that's sorely missing in a lot of the things we discussed.
Can I tell you a little bay story?
Sure.
So, I fish the bay. I fish the bay a lot. I'm down there most weekends fishing the bay. And when I started fishing 12 years ago down the bay, it was what we call a structure fishery. You would find a fish on the rocks and the trees that fall in and everything, but because there was no grass. Because what had happened is sediment had come and there's been too much sediment, it wiped out the grass, it killed it, it caused all kinds of different problems. So there was no grass. Over the last 12 years, it's changed. It's not a structure fishery anymore. It's a grass fishery because all the grass is back. When you go out and you get on the Susquehanna Flats, you look out, there's hundreds and hundreds of acres out there in the Susquehanna Flats. When the tide goes down, you can almost look like you can walk on it because there's so much grass that lays over. And that wasn't there 12 years ago. And that's all attributable to work that we've done in Pennsylvania that has brought that back. And it's so funny. And I like to show videos of it to my farmers. I'm like, look, you did this. I'm like, this wasn't here before. And so when people say, oh, you're the villain, you're the bad guy, that's not true. They're just trying to raise money. I'm like, this is what you've done.
Yeah.
Well, we saw that after Hurricane Lee.
Right.
We had the grass starting to grow then. Hurricane Lee came and wiped it out, but it recovered extremely quickly. Sure. Because we had already set the good base in there.
Sure.
When you go out there and the Susquehanna, and the bay, has a fair amount of nutrient in it, so it can sort of have a cloudy look to it sometimes. It varies between like a light green to like coffee, and but when you get on the flats, it's crystal clear. Yeah. You can see straight to the bottom because that is just a sponge. It sucks up everything and it filters the water. It's amazing.
As part of education, I think we do have to stand on what has been improvements and what continued improvements look like. You mentioned finger pointing. We need to get out of the finger pointing business. If we're going to bellyache, we need to bellyache quickly, come up with solutions and move the ball. A lot of these dynamics, even the clarity and gradients of waters from center of the bay to the shore, those things can be, from an analytical standpoint, proven on paper and mapped out. Some of these illustrations can be developed for these purposes. So until part 2, where we'll do more belly aching with Jeremy, I thank you, gentlemen. I greatly appreciate your time today.
Thanks, Charles.
We bellyache for a little bit, but then we move quickly to solutions.
We do.
Yes, and that's what but we have to, you have to bellyache a little bit. But yeah, you're right. We do move quickly to solutions.
We do. It's got to become contagious.
We can get there.
I think so. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thanks, Charles.
Yeah. Here's the hard question that I've asked everyone, which is going to be hard, just because I think it's a hard question. Who is Jeremy?
It's a good question. I don't know if it's a hard question. I think Jeremy is somebody that's personable, relatable, friendly. And I think in our business, we're in the people business. I have to be that way. And I'm quite comfortable being that way too, because people, they buy me and they buy what we're doing and what we're selling. So I often tell people I'm a social engineer, because the relationships and dealing with people is the most important part of what we do. Yeah. So I think that's me. Certainly not perfect. There's a lot of things I'm always looking to improve, just watching other people and taking things from other people, what they do, or things how I'd like to improve myself. So I think it's important to be aware of who I am as well and who I want to be. Yeah. Certainly I often fall short of things, but I'm also aware enough to know that I'm always looking to improve and be the best version of myself that I can be each day.
Yeah, so, that's perfect.
Yeah.
It's perfect. I always say it's a hard question because you can answer it in 1,000 different ways, right? Yeah. Some people have given one-word answers. Yeah. Some people have given a string of one-word answers. There are some things that I know because I know most of you folks personally and professionally that wonder why they didn't say that.
If you would ask me that question a year from now, or if you would have asked me that question a year ago, they would be different answers.
I think so.
So I think that's it's an interesting question for sure. So.
Yeah. It also kind of gets people comfortable talking about the things that they know. Yeah. There's no need to be nervous. Tell me about your relationship with the Plain Sect.
I'll tell you, it's really interesting. That's a harder question than talking about myself and who I am. Really, when I started in this profession in 2001, it was almost a game to me to be accepted by the Plain Sect, being English. And it is a process, and it's been a process to get accepted by the Plain community. And now that I've been doing this for almost 25 years, I have been accepted. And its acceptance brings more work and referrals, where if you do a good job for the dad, he's going to recommend his son. At church, he'll say, hey, you can work with this Jeremy guy. It was hard, and it took probably 10 or 15 years to get to that point where I can be a trusted presence in the Amish community. And really, that's important to me because a lot of the work we do is with the Plain Sect. And they're historically underserved by the government and other folks as well. A lot of folks, boy, I don't want to work with them because they may be hard to work with. They're difficult. They don't accept fundings, which I found to be not true. And to be able to be that person of information to provide value to the Plain Sect for stuff that they want to do on their farm, that's important to me, and that's important to us as well. So I recognize that, and it's an important position to be in, and we can make a lot of impact by having that position too.
Yeah, I agree 100%. When you were away, we had a call with our broader team and the collective. We basically backing you to continue to do exactly what you just said, but us taking the, I'm going to use your term, techie stuff off and the growth corporate stuff off your plate so you can go do what you do best. And that's Chase's relationship with you. And we're using capital formation dollars from the government in order to do that because, like you said, your target market is underserved.
Yeah.
So now I'm going to make you laugh. I have had people from the state ask me to help them with engaging the Amish. Me. And I have spoken to them multiple years at multiple conservation district meetings, and I have watched people put up slides and they're falling asleep. And right?
Yeah.
So here I go up to the front, and we start talking about agriculture conservation and the things that they do. And they're just looking at me. How does he know this stuff?
Yeah.
Who is this guy?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I know how difficult it can be to crack the veneer and get in there. And still to this day, and we're working together to bridge the gap between the State Conservation Commission and the Plain Sect community. What is it that is the biggest misperception of the Amish community?
There's a few. The biggest one probably is that they are unwilling to cooperate and participate in conservation work. And I call it like a conservation conscience. And a lot of people, the misconception is the Amish have a low conservation conscience. And that's not really true. Certainly, I think it's generational, where grandpa and dad, maybe not, where we're going to do it ourselves. And I know it may take a lot of time, but we're not going to accept funding. We're going to do it ourselves. And I think that's changing with sons taking over farms and transition plans and generational plans, where now the younger generations are absolutely willing to participate and have a high level of conservation conscience, where they want to do the right thing, where they want to balance the economic performance of their farm and the environmental performance of their farm. And really, when you can show them that, it's a light bulb moment where, hey, we want to participate. And in fact, I would say when I started in 2001, 10% of the Amish and Plain Sect would accept funding. 90% would. In fact, I would almost not even bring it up. I knew the answer was no. It's reverse now, where it's almost every one of them take the funding. And there's still some times where you still have to sell conservation to them and get them to say yes, but it's a lot easier now. And folks are even voluntarily putting in riparian forested buffers, which even 5 years ago, 10 years ago, even with funding was a no-go. They're voluntarily doing that. So absolutely, I think people need to know that the Amish and the Plain Sect do want to cooperate. They do want to have a high level of conservation conscience, and they do want to accept funding. So now our job is to
Bridge the gaps.
Yes, connect those willing landowners that want to do good work with funders that have funding that say, hey, why don't people want to work with the Amish? And we have all this money to give towards the Amish. Boy, we're in a good position to bridge that gap.
We sure are. It's intriguing to me for a number of reasons. I always think every time things go bad or they go south, people start talking about the Amish and they have food and they have this. And it's like, why do things need to get bad before you want to spotlight them?
Yep.
So for me as an underserved African American, right, I look at some of the shared qualities in terms of being underserved and in their case also underrepresented.
Yep.
Because I have conversations with certain folks and they say, oh, it's going to be so hard. And I'm thinking, well, take it from my position. I don't really think it's going to be that hard. They own their land. They have everything they need. It's just whether or not this whole environmental piece is valuable to them or whether they find responsibility in it that they want to shoulder. Tell me about what you see across the generations in the Plain Sect.
Yeah, I do think also they're an easy target, and because of their value and beliefs, they don't do a lot of complaining, and they don't do a lot of sticking up for themselves too. So I think we can also be a voice for them as well.
Sure.
So and that was the same when Granddad was farming, and now Dad and the sons. But certainly in 2001, when I was working with Grandpa. And absolutely, I knew that he wasn't going to be accepting fundings, and that was the way things were. And again, slowly transitioning to Dad and now the son were definitely the way that they're making decisions and working with programs and doing voluntary compliance and getting into compliance with their operations is a big difference. So. That's a big difference, but so many times I go out to these farms where they really are excited to see us pull in the drive, even if we're cold calling and just knocking on a door in a certain watershed where we're targeting historically underserved or Amish. People think, why would you want to do that? You're gonna get told to get off the farm. I've never once been kicked off a farm because they want, first of all, just like anybody else, they want information's free. So why would they not listen to the information we're giving them? And also, oftentimes they'll say, I've thought about doing this. I just didn't know who to call. I didn't know where to start.
A lot of that.
There's a lot of that. So that's another thing, too, that's probably under the misconception is that they don't want this, they don't want to do this stuff. They don't want to comply. But it's quite the opposite as well, where they really are looking for somebody to talk to and bridge that gap. And that proactivity is something that was different than Dad and Grandpa too, where they wouldn't call into us. Oftentimes you had to go out and cold call and do other things, and oftentimes it was a no. But now we're having the next generation of they're actually being proactive and calling us to do this stuff, which is exciting.
It is exciting. Do you think they understand? I think I know the answer, but I'd love to hear your version. Do you think they understand how important they are to the agriculture community? Because they don't. You mentioned them not doing a lot of complaining, but they also don't do a lot of backslapping. Yeah. Do they realize how important they are? And then I got a few more questions along those lines.
That's a good question. I never thought about that. Certainly, it's part of our job to celebrate and find those community and conservation ambassadors and first. The innovative farmers in the community that do that and celebrate them. Certainly, I don't know. You're right. It's hard for me to remember complimenting or celebrating an Amish farmer just because I know it's downplayed to the point where I don't want anybody pointing fingers and look at me. And it's part of their heritage too and their beliefs. They don't want to be elevated above a neighbor. Right. So even if we were to try our best to say, hey, this is what you're doing is amazing, super important. Do we want to have field days here to celebrate? That's tough. That's tough. So, but if we know that again we can balance the economic and environmental performance of their farms, they know that's important and they know that's impactful. So we did our job. Yeah, I agree.
And I thought that's what you would say, but it's the we only want to give them credit when we want to reference what it is that they do so well when what we do so well is not going so well.
Right.
And that to me is the silliest thing.
Yeah.
But I do understand there's dynamics on both sides.
Yeah.
There's a myth that the Amish don't use electric. How do they function from your standpoint when it comes to mechanical power and electrical power?
Well, they have power. It's just different than electric. They'll have diesel engines and they'll have batteries. So it's kind of funny. I tell a story of I was at an Amish kitchen doing some paperwork with an Amish farmer, and I needed a copy. And I said, well, can I take that back to my office? I'll make a copy of it and then mail it back to you. And the Amish farmer said, I'll make a copy for you. So he took the piece of paper, went into his living room, opened up below the nightstand or the light stand. He had a printer in there running on battery, and a copy. So he made me a copy of the document. I felt embarrassed that the Amish farmer made me and that he made me a copy.
Yeah.
But again, it just goes to show, just give them obviously more credit. But they have to stay in touch with technology. Obviously, they're running a business, but the way that they power their operations and their farms, it's a little bit different than electricity. But they do have power with batteries and engines, things like that, of course.
People think they're in the candle.
Yes. Yeah. No. It's not far from that because a lot of times they have lights in the kitchen that are battery operated, like DeWalt. And I don't know why they're always DeWalt. They always use DeWalt.
They must own stock.
That's what it has to be. They're always yellow lights hanging from the kitchen.
Yes.
And so it's interesting. It's not far off from a candle, but it's not candle, but it's battery lights. And the same in the barn. Yeah. They have these battery operated lights hanging in the barn. So I guess when the battery runs out, that's your work's done. It's time to go to bed.
Or they go charge it.
You go charge it. Well, that's also too. They have all these charging blocks.
I've seen
in the diesel engine room.
Yeah.
And then just rotate them out too. So they're doing okay.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, I'm kind of envious too of the lifestyle. Sometimes too with all the stuff too that we have with technology and kids and all this other stuff. Yes. Oftentimes I'm like, boy, I wonder how long I could do that or we could do that. And there's a lot being said with being connected and grounded and not being all reliant on technology too. So I'm absolutely envious of some of that stuff too sometimes.
The unplugging of it all
Yeah.
that they can do is extraordinary.
Yep.
What makes the construction industry reliant, having high admiration for the Amish community and their labor capabilities?
Yeah, I think it's just the dedication to their craft and their attention to detail. In fact, when we bid projects out and we have Amish crews bidding on the projects, it's a sense of relief just because I know they're going to do a high level of work. And also they've been doing that. They've been using their hands, obviously for generations, but ever since they were kids. They've been working hard. They have a good work ethic.
Yeah.
They will put in long days. They will get projects completed, and it'll be right.
Yeah.
So just to have that amount of competitive contractors in our area when we're bidding out projects that we know is going to be high level work too, I think is good for the landowner too. That they know this project's going to be done right and it's going to be at a competitive price too. So that's super important to what we're doing as well.
Yep. At a high level, you've transitioned from TMAG to on your own, and now we're bolstering what you're doing on your own at the high level. What do you do?
I didn't recognize the first name you'd mentioned. I don't know who that is. I don't speak to them anymore.
I understand.
Yeah, no. What do I do now? I think what do we do?
Yes,
Certainly,
yes.
It's funny on the drive in there. Like I don't want to mention I or me. I'm an us and a we guy. So I'm trying. I don't want to say I. So I think there is a big market need impact we can make by doing everything we talked about here, working with the Amish and Plain Sect and English landowners too, of providing high-level quality services for conservation work. And whether that's conservation BMPs on farms or whether that's engineering and permitting to get into compliance and doing planning, all those things are super important and they're all related to each other. And being the the answer and the go-to people for Plain Sect and for English farmers and landowners. I think that is a big responsibility, and I think that's who. I think that's what our identity wants to be.
Absolutely.
And I think I'm also a big believer in staying in your lane and doing what you do well.
Sure.
And I understand you also want to diversify and do some other things too. But boy, I really hope we could do that well. And I want to be, when people think of doing a project on their farm, I want to think of us. So.
And you mentioned the staying in the lanes thing, and that's we've always approached, and I'm truly thankful for your leadership in the field, because all the stuff that you want to do, we got that part covered.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I know you feel that, and sometimes we got to lean on you to, Jeremy, just take the hand off, but it's all good, right? You staying in the lane. The thing that I think is important for us in the we part proposition is this whole English versus Plain Sect piece. I think there are a number of folks that are competing for English farming business, and it's scaling, and it's all this different. It's so much more diverse. In the Plain Sect community, it's less diverse, but the quality's got to be right.
Yeah.
It's got to be right because of all the dynamics. So I'm with you in terms of staying in the lane. I am looking forward to coming up with what I'm just going to call for right now, safer approaches to generation and storage in the Plain Sect community. Because you've seen some of the things I've seen, and safety isn't always the first thing on their mind. They learn through experience and recover. So, when we proposed working with the SEC and Department of Agriculture in Pennsylvania and in other states, conservation means so many things now. What are the top 3 conservation elements to you?
As far as practices installed or...
Either way. Practices installed, BMPs that have the greatest impact, whatever you think.
Certainly, nutrient and sediment reductions. That's a hot topic, a hot word, a hot phrase. Everything is when it comes to reports and funding. Everybody wants the biggest bang for their buck. Certainly, these round concrete manure pits. It feels like everybody has one already. So I don't know how we keep doing more, but that's a big part. You want to be able to put all this manure from your dairy operation around a concrete pit, store it for 4 months, 6 months, so you can spread it when it's environmentally appropriate. That's a big thing. We do a lot of those. Concrete barnyards for animals at a stabilized surface, so whenever there's manure and stormwater, that all goes into the pit, so that's collected as well. Then they can spread that as well. Then field work, there's a lot of waterways and terraces and diversions, things like that as well, that are big. Safely conveying clean water and conveying dirty water and treating it, things like that as well. So those are big conservation BMPs that we do. And then soil quality is starting to become really anything we do is a systems approach. And I've learned that as well. Before, let's do all these manure pits and barnyards and not worry about, the no-till, the cover cropping, the nutrient management, and maybe not even worry about the corridor, the stream corridor with riparian forested buffers. Anymore, though,
you got to look at it all.
All of it. It's a whole comprehensive approach. And sometimes, especially when you're trying to sell conservation to a Plain Sect, and they just want a manure pit. I don't want to, why are you talking about all these other things, Jeremy? It's important. And also, I think you can show them the benefits of the soil quality, just even if it's no-till. Reduce how many times you're doing trips with the animals and the labor. There's a lot of savings with time, too. And, of course, obviously, the benefit with soil quality and the stream corridor, where the benefits of the riparian forested buffer, and there's science that can show putting in these riparian forested buffers at the stream and the water quality benefits for doing that. And also, there's other programs like CREP that can rent that ground because that all comes down to productive land and how much you're going to pay me to rent that land. Is it going to make me money, too? So things like that have been really important, too, for getting Amish and English farmers to commit to conservation.
Those are, and I was hoping you would get to the systems or the systems of systems or the BMP stacking or however we phrase it, right? there's a thousand ways to look at it. But I think that one of the things that we have to do, which is a common theme in all of the conversations we've had to launch the platform, is educate.
Yes.
I personally don't see enough of the benefits of conservation communicated in ways that people are digesting.
Yep.
It's not happening. The universities, no finger pointing, have fallen down on this one. Mm-hmm. It was just a big push 20 years ago, then 10, and now it's kind of like, yeah, okay. And passes in the field and labor, whether it's feed or diesel, all these things I think we could probably come up with in the next 6 to 8 months, some form of illustration, some form of, lack of a better term, low-end illustration that shows these things, because I don't think they understand. And we're going to have the lovely opportunity of kicking off using SCC and ACAP dollars at Saul to do it at the 75-acre level.
Yeah. Wow.
And that's going to be an opportunity where we all get in the field and the team will be there to record everything and see how do we go through a system of systems approach and stack BMPs and get things going. Even if it takes 4 years to implement it all, at least we understand the things that make sense right now. Last question. What do you think about composting?
Well, I'll ask you a question. What is composting to you? Because that's the next question. Because
it was a trick question.
Yeah, composting is different to everybody. You know, it's like, well, somebody says, oh, I'm interested in composting, or I would say, are you interested in composting? Yeah, I am. Well, are you talking about dead animal composting? Are you talking, mortality composting? No, I just want to put my cows on manure and bedding. Are you going to be mechanically turning it, incorporate? No, not really. I just, that's not composting. So when you educate to talk about really what is composting, a lot of times it's not what people think it is. It's definitely more involved. But I'm absolutely a believer in a composting system that's operating as it should and as it's designed to do. As far as cow comfort is a top shelf BMP. It's just not, certainly for the Amish and the Plain Sect, not something that's widely accepted yet, but I do think that's coming, and that's happening now, where we're working on a couple composting barns now. So that's absolutely something that's coming. And along that lines, one of the pet projects I have that I hope we can get to sometime is a small-scale methane digester for the Amish.
Oh, yeah.
And also,
that's coming.
Yeah, it's coming. And also, I know that's out there.
To run the generator to charge the battery.
Exactly. It's a systems approach. Yeah. So certainly that's a big part of it. And also, I can't tell you how many times the Amish asked me for, have you engineered or designed a roof to put over my manure pit? Because they don't, the direct rainfall. And
it's just adding labor costs.
I know. But if there's a way that we could engineer some type of retractable,
or just cover it.
Some type of retractable, strong, structured roof, whether it's a timber frame or plastic or post, or that would be something I know would be very well received by Amish too. So
I think those two solutions work together. Yeah, in my humble opinion, you're at the 100,000 gallon up to incremental 500,000 gallons. Stay in the NRCS tank world, right?
Yep.
Cover it, flare if you're not using it, pipe it to the generator. That stuff's all right there within reach. I agree. It's just been the English farmers, again, no finger pointing, have pushed size and scale to take food waste and all these other components that add to the economics of it. And I get it. But then you get up against my issue of, well, you're adding all these dynamics for digestion, and then digestion's only half efficient, and then you're putting something on the soil that the soil doesn't need, and we have a runoff issue.
Yeah, right.
You keep going in circles. So when you mentioned me and compost, I know you and I both have lived through the Valley Protein closure at Prion issue era. And I'm concerned about mortalities. It's cheap to bury a cow, right? It's expensive to do the right thing, especially if that includes hauling. We have runoff issues. that's not a pathogen kill scenario.
Right.
And we are commingling mortalities and other pseudo-compost issues.
Right.
And then specifically in the Plain Sect community,
Yes.
we don't have the frequency of testing to know if their transition back to cow comfort is tied to mastitis.
Yep.
And so it's kind of like
Yep.
right?
Yep.
I want to see us break that.
Yes.
I want to see us break that by putting BMPs together, stacked in an affordable, nice way that has the frequency of sampling and the frequency of analysis that give them comfort. And so that's something I definitely want to see us do alongside the digester and everything else.
Well, you talked about education, and I think of it in my mind as distilling, taking down all this complex, all these acronyms, all these programs, exactly, distilling it down to where you can present it to a farmer in a way that they understand. And if a farmer at the end would tell me, I've had so many people in here before talk about this, but you're the only one that made it make sense to me. That's one of the biggest compliments that we can get as well, because then again, we did our job of educating, and there are so many opportunities, and there is a lot of it is just super high level where they don't want to take the time to understand all that. But if we can come out there and be an advocate for the farmer and educate and inform and distill down all these opportunities and present it to them where they can make decisions. That's a win. So that's yeah.
And the conservation districts, again, no finger pointing, have missed the ball on it.
Yep.
It's been a take it as it is or leave it.
Yep.
And I don't think anyone likes being in that position unless we're talking about good, warm food.
Yeah.
Because if it's good and it's not hot, you'll still eat it.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
So I'm with you there. That strategy is as sound as it gets. Last question, even though I said that before, I just thought of something good though. What does the Amish community look like if we're successful in 2035? And that's a scale question.
Yeah, right. And that's exactly where my mind went, because obviously with the sprawl, the Amish are moving all over the country. And everybody thinks, oh, they're just in Lancaster. But boy, we have such an opportunity to cast a wide net over the Bay and over even a bigger area too. So
Ohio,
Kentucky, exactly. So there's a big net that we're starting to cast. So I think that's the first thing I thought about was scale and mobility and everything else too. I think that's awesome too. But I'm hopeful that, again, they would not be an easy target for people, that they would start realizing, boy, a lot of the projects we're doing are with the Amish and Plain Sect, and they do have that elevated conscience with conservation. Let's go pick on somebody else. I'm hopeful in my own just small way that they would stop getting all the fingers pointed at them, and people would realize we got to. They're doing a good job. Yeah. And, let's focus on the wastewater treatment plants or all the municipalities, maybe how they're doing things as well. Again, not to point fingers like I just did, but, there's other reasons that, Bay report cards are what they are and water quality tests are what they are, not just the Amish. Certainly there's farms, of course, Amish and English that can do better. But I think we are doing better, and I do believe we did get a C on the Bay report card.
I saw that.
So that's an improvement, and I do believe a lot of it can be directly tied to the Plain Sect and the Amish doing a lot of these conservation works. And I think some of the tests that we're showing with water testing on Amish farms and streams and corridors can back that up too. So I'm excited for that.
We have to, along with the basic education to them to execute, we also have to take a much more prominent role in illustrating the results. Yeah. These results can't be in a publication on Science Direct from Penn. Yeah. No offense. We work with Penn. Yeah. Love the folks at New Bolton. Great. Yep. But the Amish are not going to read that. Yep. And it's too much technical academician speak. What does it mean? How does it grow? Yep. How does it translate at that scale? I think we're missing that. Did you see the Bay governors got together yesterday and moved the gavel?
The gavel got switched. Yes, I did see that.
Yeah. I have tremendous respect for Governor Moore and Youngkin and Shapiro. Those are the folks I've worked with. The others, not as much. And then New York came down too, which I think is great. I've had the argument of why New York's not in Region 3.
Yep.
Two watersheds in from the same state.
And the Headwaters, right.
That doesn't make any sense, right? But I thought that was, I thought it was interesting to hear. We're going to move the data so that it's more attainable. That without addressing the cost associated with it, I think no finger pointing, they've missed the ball.
Yeah.
We've just made an adjustment. Everyone is in agreement, but there's a cost associated with that. And the federal government and the state have paid for professionals. I was part of that team with Tetra Tech and others to come up with those costs, and we're still going to balk at the costs. So yes, the numbers are moved.
Yeah.
NP and sediment. But what about the cost?
Yep.
What are we going to do to address implementation costs? And the timeline that they've set, another hurdle, while it's now 2025 plus or wherever they're doing, I think the timeline is they're not addressing the things they need to do that scale. They're talking about demonstrations and all these things. We don't need any more demonstrations.
Yep.
So it's intriguing and refreshing at the same time to see new leadership, different styles of leadership come together. But I still think we got a long way to go.
I agree. Yep. It's exciting, though.
It is exciting.
We'll see how it plays out.
It is.
Yep.
Jeremy, thank you for being here,
Thank you,
brother.
Charles.
I appreciate it, man.
Likewise. Thank you.